Hello and welcome in. It's always college football. Today is Sunday, October 13th, and I'm your host, Greg McElroy. Thanks for being here. I have to apologize in advance. Voice is a little bit shaky today. For those of you that consumed the football from wall to wall yesterday, you probably understand why. You're probably a little bit shaky yourself, given the fact that that was about as entertaining and as exhilarating a day of college football as we've had in quite some time. We were in Death Valley for LSU and Ole Miss, and I'd be lying if I told you I felt great. I don't think I got back from the stadium until about 12:30, and I don't think with the 4:30 wake-up call, 6 a.m. flight, layover in Atlanta, back here in Birmingham where I live, it's been a whirlwind for the last 24 to 48 to last 12 to 24 hours, but man, is it worth it? That's what we do it for. Jack actually said that before the show. I'm like, man, I hate doing Sunday shows. I'm so tired. And he goes, this is what we do it for. And he couldn't be more right, because that was so much fun yesterday, wasn't it? I mean, really, with the game starting at noon, some of the drama that we had in the noon window carrying over into the drama that we had at 3:30, and then the night window, which was jam-packed with unbelievable finishes. One out in the West Coast, a couple of overtime games in the SEC. It doesn't get much better than that. So we hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we did. Let's dive in, okay? We will start with Texas and Oklahoma. Texas, the number one ranked team. They proved it again. That was just a complete beatdown. And outside of the ball that was fumbled nearly out of the back of the end zone, there was very little that Oklahoma had going for them. Had that ball been fumbled out of the back of the end zone, that might have been the highlight for the Sooners in this one. If you look at Texas, they're a boa constrictor on defense, man. They just bottle you up, bottle you up, bottle you up. And I'll give Oklahoma and their staff credit. They're early on in the game, and we've told you this for a while. When you watch Oklahoma, the bigger the game, the more likely they are to have tendency breaking elements of their game plan. And the first couple drives, they did some things that Texas hadn't seen. Well, they did some things that I hadn't seen them do either. So clearly Texas and everybody that has watched Oklahoma up to this point, there were a couple things in there that Texas had to adjust to. Well, they did, and Texas just kind of relaxed after that. First 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes, it was as if the little cat and mouse game was breaking out. And then Texas, unlike last year, didn't get themselves in a big hole. They were able to weather the storm early, make the adjustments, make the tweaks, and get it sorted out. And then ultimately turn things on in the second quarter. And really in the third and fourth quarter, just kind of put the game on ice. I mean, they weren't trying to run the score up by any stretch of the imagination. It was just, hey, guys, we're good. We're put it in cruise control. Georgia's coming to town next week. Let's get out of here and get out of here in one piece. Just a remarkably impressive performance from Texas. That is the most complete team in the country right now. They have everything that you could possibly want, offensively and defensively, but it might be more on the defensive side that I came away super impressed today. I don't think Oklahoma's a world beater on offense, but still very, very impressive. Then we'll go to the next game, Oregon and Ohio State. A lot of O's here in the first. Oklahoma, Oregon, Ohio State. Anyways, this game was on at the same time as our game. So in full disclosure, I had it on. We have our little quad box with 4 monitors. Stats top left, ISO monitor top right, and then I have 2 games. So I have Ohio State, Oregon in the bottom left. I had Florida, Tennessee in the bottom right. So I got to watch a decent amount of it. But there were some plays here and there that I missed. A couple takeaways. I got this thing totally wrong, by the way. That was a different Oregon team that showed up this past weekend than the Oregon team that I'd seen in the first few weeks of the season. Totally different team. Couple of reasons what made them different. Where has that Evan Stewart been at wide receiver? That Evan Stewart was amazing. 7 for 150. He'd been quiet, really hadn't been a huge factor in the offense. Thought when he got to Oregon, man, this guy's got a chance to be the number one guy for them. And it just hadn't materialized, or maybe they were just keeping him a little bit off the radar. And then boom, Evan Stewart now jumps up alongside Tez Johnson to a 1A, 1B situation. So that's massive. I was also very impressed with what I saw from the Oregon. I thought really the Oregon front played well. I thought Dylan Gabriel did a nice job. He throws a very catchable ball. He's not a guy that can just drive it between two very, very close-knit defenders. He's going to have to anticipate throws. He's going to have to make out-breaking throws and throws outside the numbers because he's not one that can just feed it right in the tiniest windows. But if you want to get him in one-on-ones, you want to allow him to throw it down the field, that's where he really excels. I thought he had a really strong performance, and they needed it. On the other side, there's a lot that I think Ohio State has to be looking at right now and feeling a little concerned about. You look at a few things. One, their defensive line. Is their defensive line as good as they should be? Probably not. There's a lot of guys on that defensive line that are considered all-American candidates, and they didn't play like it the other day. They did not at all, I think, play the way that you would think they would when you have a group that is that talented. What about the back end? The secondary is supposed to be a remarkable strength of this team, and they got torched to the tune of 341 through the air from Dylan Gabriel. So I think if you're Ohio State, and the other thing, offensive line. I didn't think Ohio State's offensive line played very well either. So you look at it, man, and you think, all right, well, Ohio State's supposed to have this, this, and this. Man, I'm not feeling as confident today about the Buckeyes as I was a couple days ago. Tremendous win for Dan Lanning. Tremendous win for the Oregon Ducks. Do you realize that was Oregon's, or at least I didn't realize this, but I saw this last night. That was Oregon's first win ever against an AP top 2 team. I was amazed by that. So that was shocking. But either way, a tremendous game, one that we got completely wrong. So credit to the Ducks and credit to Dan Lanning. Let's go next to Penn State, the number 4 ranked team in the country. Remarkable comeback from Penn State. It was not pretty. Penn State seemingly couldn't run the football, which I think spells big concerns moving forward. Just saying. Penn State, their bread and butter is going to be to run the football, but Andy Kotelnicki, their offensive coordinator, they basically had to say, hey, we can't run it against SC. Well, think about the teams that SC's faced the last couple of weeks, and teams have been able to run the football. So the fact that Penn State couldn't is probably of concern. The other thing I would say is in the first half of that game, man, that was Lincoln Riley at his best. You never almost knew where the football was. I mean, guys are going left, guys are going right. You got jet sweeps and end arounds, and you got just a lot of eye violations that are being created on the other side. You got to give credit to Penn State. They're fighting back, making some plays, and figuring out, man, if we don't throw it to Tyler Warren, that's a bad play. Like, this guy is awesome, made some acrobatic catches, made some great plays, not just down the field, did a few things after the catch. So Penn State finally just said, forget about it. Forget distribution. This is what we're going to do. And they did so beautifully. I thought Aller played really nice game. Made some timely throws on 4th down. There were a couple of plays where he moved in the pocket, kept his eyes downfield, and was very accurate when delivering the football. I thought he played really solid football game. So I think Aller should feel proud, but I am concerned a little bit. If Penn State becomes a team that can't run the football, I don't know if they have the weapons on the outside of Tyler Warren to be able to take advantage of some of the best defenses in America, because I don't think anyone believes SC is that. So is that a sign of doom and gloom for Penn State moving forward? Either way, I don't know. That was a desperate SC team, and they got SC's best fight. But at the same time, I don't know if I feel better about Penn State today as I did going into that game. We'll go to number 5. That'd be the Georgia Bulldogs. Didn't feel like Georgia was never in jeopardy of losing the game, but it didn't feel like Georgia had the same killer instinct that you're used to seeing. Now, credit to Mississippi State and their offense. Van Buren, their quarterback's a good player. That guy's a lot of fun to watch. He's going to be good in time. Like, that kid has a very bright future. But that was not a workmanlike Georgia defensive performance at all. You wonder if, like Texas, hey, get into the second half, cruise control, big matchup next week, top 5 matchup between Texas and Georgia. Maybe that's kind of what went down, because it felt like there was a little more in the tank from Georgia, but we just didn't get it. So either way, they get out of there surviving. And the defense, while looking a little human, they'll play much better next week when they take on the Longhorns. Let's go to number 7, the Alabama Crimson Tide. Now, a lot to take away from this game. I watched this game from start to finish. This is a game that was very strange. Alabama was in full control. I mean, just full control of this game early on. Just be able to run the football, had good rhythm going in the passing game, felt great about what you were seeing from the Tide. All right. And then things started to shift. South Carolina puts a drive together, goes and cuts the score in half. It's now 14-7. And then Alabama made some of the dumbest mistakes I think I've ever seen. And seriously, for as well coached and for as good as this team has traditionally been, that was about as bad as it gets at the end of the first half and at the end of game situation. This team right now is lacking situational awareness, which is really a problem. And it needs to get addressed and get addressed rather quickly. Let's start with the end of half. What is South Carolina's best attribute? Their edge rushers, right? Their defensive ends. So why is your quarterback holding onto the football forever, dropping back into his own end zone, and drifting to the right while dropping back into his own end zone before trying to throw it away, which ultimately results in a safety? Just a terrible decision by Jalen Milroe. That was a 2-point play. And then they get the ball again. There's 15 seconds left in the half. Why are you trying to fit it into a tight window? The ball's intercepted. They run down. They're able to kick a field goal as the time expires. I mean, just two inexcusable decisions, gift wrapping 5 points to South Carolina. On the other side of the coin, at the end of the game, you're up 20-19. You have not played well in the second half. South Carolina had a great time-consuming drive to kick things off in the second half. So you're a little bit out of rhythm, but at this point, you're in good shape. It's 3rd and 10. You're going in. You throw it. It's under 2 minutes. Guy catches it. At that point, you go down. Like, you don't score. Under any circumstance, you don't score there. Like, it is an automatic declare down situation. There's 1 minute and 55 seconds left. It's 1st and 10. They have no timeouts left. You go down, you take 3 knees, the game is over. Well, sure enough, guy decides to score. Now you're up 8. It's 27-19. They have to kick the ball off, and you just know the second you screw up the clock at the end of game situation, you know what's coming. South Carolina goes right down the field. Nick Harbor makes an amazing toe-dragging catch there in the front right corner of the end zone. They fail on the 2-point conversion. Then they kick it, get the onside kick, and they have a chance moving forward to potentially steal the game outright there in regulation. Just an inexcusably bad and dumb game that was played by the Crimson Tide. Just dumb. Flat out dumb, and it needs to get addressed really quickly because that almost cost them, and it shouldn't have. They were the better team yesterday. They outplayed South Carolina, but the dumb mistakes, man, and just gift wrapping points, it just can't happen because against really, really good teams, you're going to get got. And guess what? You got a really good team coming up next week when you travel to Tennessee to take on the Volunteers, who survived against Florida. Now, full disclosure, I did not get a chance to watch very much of this. All I know is that it was 3-0 at halftime. Like, what the heck is going on? What is going on with Tennessee's offense, right? We've kind of documented this. Tennessee their best attribute is running the football. And their best player is Dylan Sampson, at least on the offensive side. Well, when there wasn't a ton of big plays to be had, not really a lot of big plays to be had through the air either, not really creating and manufacturing a lot of big plays. I think the weapons right now are not really striking fear in the opponents on the other side, but Tennessee survives. They are able to put together a nice second half performance. They get it to overtime. They win it in overtime after the missed field goal there by Florida. But either way, Tennessee, I thought it was, and like I said, I didn't get to watch much of it, so I want to review this, go back and watch the tape. It didn't feel like there was a lot of panic on the Tennessee sideline. That to me was very encouraging because there was a moment, second half, rivalry game, big moment for Florida, got to have it situation for Florida, down 10-0. There could have been a lot of opportunities to express panic, and it didn't seem like that was the case for Tennessee. On the other side, Florida, it appeared as if there were a ton of mistakes. Like, what happened? Why did Florida not go for two? I don't know what happened. It looked like they were lining up to go for two. Next thing you know, I look over and it's 17 all. Why didn't they go for two at the end? They should have. So I'm looking forward to reviewing this game because I just didn't get much of it, but it looks like, hey, gutsy win, survive in advance for Tennessee, but they got to get things going offensively because things right now are not going great for Nico Iamaleava, Josh Heupel, and the Volunteers offense. Let's go to the game that we were on. Number 9, Ole Miss against LSU. And this game right here was what college football is all about. I mean, it was as hostile and as loud and as entertaining and as emotional, and just the ebbs and flows of emotion and the big plays on both sides. I mean, this was as good as it gets. It just does not get much better than what we experienced there in Death Valley on Saturday night. Ole Miss could not have shot themselves in the foot more in the first half. I mean, the fact that they still went into halftime with a lead after fumbling and giving LSU 3 points there at the end. They had a 4th and 1 stop inside the LSU 10-yard line. They missed a field goal. They also had a drop on a big post to their best receiver on the first or second play of the game that would have been a touchdown. I mean, it's kind of crazy to think just how many times Ole Miss could have put the nail in the coffin on Saturday, and they just couldn't quite do it. Now, that's a credit to LSU. They were resilient. They kept chipping away. They refused to go away. But there were about 10 different times in which it's like, all right, here's the game. If LSU doesn't get this one, it's game, set, and match. And they constantly made the play, whether it was 4th down conversions there as the game went along, whether it was big defensive moments there where they had to get off the field, and they did, whether it was a turnover when Ole Miss seemingly had all the momentum and a bad throw by Dart, underthrow leads to a pick. The stars kind of had to align there in the second half for LSU to get this one, and as a result, they did. Just a remarkable performance, I thought, across the board from Brian Kelly's group. And people will look at Garrett Nussmeier's numbers, and they will look at 22 of 51, and they'll say that really isn't a very good performance. But it really, as you watched it, felt so much better than that. A lot of the throws he was being asked to execute were down the field throws, low percentage throws. And as a result, the yards per attempt won't look absurd, but the air yards per attempt, the amount of yards downfield on almost every throw seemingly felt outrageous. But just a gutsy win, too, for LSU, man. I mean, really gutsy. They were able to harass Jackson Dart. They got better as the game went along on the defensive side. Whit Weeks at linebacker is incredible. One of the best linebackers in the country that I've seen up to this point of the season. And Ole Miss, like I said, they have to be kicking themselves because this is now twice. Ole Miss is about 3 plays away from being undefeated. And I know that a lot of teams say that, but if Ole Miss can cover a deep ball on 4th and 8 from their own 8 against Kentucky, they win. If Ole Miss can make a field goal or convert on a 4th and 1 or not fumble it before half, if they do any of those things, they win this game, and they probably win this game even more comfortably than the 3 points or the 6 points would have probably allowed for them, because they might have killed LSU's will a little earlier. But my goodness, Ole Miss, on the year that they were supposed to break through, they got to be kicking themselves. Clemson continues to roll, just a dominant performance there, especially in the second quarter. When Klubnik and them got going, they really got going. Notre Dame dominates Stanford there with a tremendous performance as things started to get going. Riley Leonard with 4 touchdowns in the game. Iowa State, how about this one? Going on the road to West Virginia. This is one where I thought West Virginia might be able to get them. And it looked like it was going that direction there early on. Iowa State makes a couple adjustments. They get things figured out. This is a really good, solid football team. They can beat you through the air. Higgins is great at wide receiver. Becht is maturing before our eyes. Hansen, how about his contributions in the run game? Nearly 100 yards and 3 touchdowns. Just really impressed with what I've seen from Iowa State this season. And they continue their undefeated stretch at 6-0, 3-0 in the Big 12. West Virginia, disappointing start, man. Just 3-3. 2-1 in the Big 12, though, so maybe things will still continue to even out as they move forward. The other team that's the belle of the ball right now in the Big 12, how about Arizona and BYU? BYU thumps Arizona in very impressive fashion. Noah Fafita was getting hit. Noah Fafita was getting harassed. And this defense, man, they continue to do amazing things. I mean, this BYU defense, if you haven't watched them, you need to take some time and really get to know this group because they are so good. Boise State, in a little bit of a ho-hum performance at Hawaii, they get it done. Ginty goes for another 210, 215, 217 to be exact. Just the guy's untouchable, absolutely untouchable, even though it was kind of a ho-hum night there for Boise State. But hey, you go to the island and get a win. You never, ever, ever take that for granted. Kansas State, very exciting game against Colorado. Was really impressed with Colorado and how they battled and how they maintained. Thought Shedeur Sanders was off the charts good. 34 of 40, but there were also a couple of big throws that were dropped. I mean, perfectly placed footballs that should have been caught. So those numbers, even at 34 of 40, probably don't reflect just how good he was. Missouri in a dominant performance against UMass. Pitt stays undefeated against Cal. Saw that there were a bunch of Cal folks that were really frustrated with the performance. To me, guys, you just held Pitt really outside of one play, the Desmond Reed run to the house. You held a pretty dang good offense in check most of the day. So I'm not sure exactly what they're so mad about. But either way, Pitt stays undefeated, even though it was not super comfortable and it was not a great second half performance. And frankly, from start to finish, it was not a great offensive performance. But Pitt, they survived. Very, very solid. Got to feel good about that. Illinois, who didn't have this one against Purdue, finishing out in overtime at 50-49. I know I didn't see it going that way, that's for sure. Iowa, in emphatic fashion, knocking off Washington a week after Washington took care of business against the Michigan Wolverines. They go to Iowa and get blasted 40-16. Wisconsin, don't look now. Wisconsin might be finding itself. Convincing victory. I know Rutgers was not at 100%, had some guys out of the lineup, but still, to go on the road in the Big Ten to win by 35 against a team that was previously 4-1 is not something to lose sight of. Georgia Tech, I don't know if you guys saw how Jamal Haynes put this thing on ice. 68 yards at the house, under a minute to go, to win the football game in regulation. North Carolina continues to invent ways to lose, which is remarkable. Army still undefeated after a 44-10 victory over UAB. Cincinnati goes to UCF and knocks them off. They're now 4-2. I don't know how good Cincinnati is, especially along the defensive line. But UCF, you want to talk about falling off a cliff the last couple weeks. Not really that surprised that they're not great, but I am surprised that they're as bad as they've been offensively. And there's a handful of other things that we want to get to here when we revisit some of these big topics on tomorrow's show. Like I said, we will dive a little deeper tomorrow. I'm going to go dive in. I'm going to take this coffee. I'm going to go watch a bunch of tape and go watch a bunch of games, and I will have more takeaways for you tomorrow on our 10 takeaway edition of Always College Football. Like I always say, please like, rate, and subscribe to the show wherever you get the show. We see all of you guys that have been pouring into the reviews, pouring into the ratings. We can't tell you how much we appreciate your support of the show. We do it for y'all. That's why we wake up on 3 hours sleep. That's why we dive in and we talk about the game that we love so much. So for Hunter Man and for US Air Force 44, for Jay Fallon 2020, for Trey Day 6, we've seen you guys. Red LeBlanc, Jeff Hartsfield, we see you guys that have been writing reviews. And we, like I said, we can't tell you enough how much we appreciate the way you guys support the show. So and even Jammin 7811, who gave us 1 star, called it a fun listen. We appreciate that. Don't be too upset about where your team currently is. That is very disappointing. I feel bad for your Seminoles. For all of us here at Always College Football, for Mark, Jake, Jack, the other Jack, I'm Greg. We hope you guys enjoyed yesterday as much as we did. It was incredible. And we'll be back with you tomorrow right here on Always College Football. Hey guys, it's Greg McElroy. Thanks for watching Always College Football. Make sure you like, rate, and subscribe to ESPN's YouTube channel and wherever you listen to your podcasts.